It's Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. I just put a pot roast in the oven. And if you have watched my stories, you know that I have recovered from the gnarliest bug on the face of the earth. And I've heard from so many of you that you also have it. So if you have the nasty bug that is going around the world right now, sending you all of my well wishes because it was brutal and it knocked me down. But here we are. I am live and I wanted to go live today to talk about two things. A really big announcement that I just made in my stories. If you're here, also say hi. Let me know where you're joining in from. Let me know your name. The thing I hate the most about Instagram is that it doesn't give me people's names. So I just get handles. And some of you have the most amazing, incredible, creative handles, but I have no idea who you are. So drop your name and where you're joining in from in the chat box so that I can say hello to you, because if you are here, you are family. And I'm just so deeply grateful that you are here. And I'm also grateful for my health, that I'm able to show up live today and not hack up a lung and feel like I need to take Dayquil or NyQuil to get through my day. So amen to that. So last night I led a masterclass called Rooted. Also, hi, Catherine from Minneapolis. I have been to Minnesota one time. I'm sure that you have a ton of snow right now. And for that, I am sorry because it's so cold. Maybe you don't. Maybe there's no snow in Minnesota. But the two times, actually I went twice. The two times I went, there was so much snow. I was like, I don't know how people live here. So please continue to say hi. I am checking the comment box. But last night, I led a masterclass called Rooted. You still have access if you want to go watch it. It is so informative. It's a 90-minute masterclass. It is free. If you drop the word Rooted underneath this video, it will ping you to go watch the replay in the private Facebook group. But we talked about a lot inside of that masterclass, and I'm not going to go over everything that we talked about. But one of the most important things that we talked about is the real cost of caring for someone without proper boundaries. And I like to call this carrying. If you are a quote unquote empath, a lot of people will label themselves as empaths. You probably know this very well. You know the act of feeling like you can sense someone's emotional state and it becomes your own emotional state. I want to talk a little bit about why that's really dangerous. And also, if you are in any leadership position whatsoever, whether you are a therapist, a healer, maybe you work inside of a corporate office, or you're simply a mother and you're caring for children, why it is so important that you understand and truly learn the proper way to set boundaries and the cost of not setting boundaries in your life. And also how to do that, because so many of us cognitively can sit down and look at all the steps that we need to take to set boundaries in our lives. But then when we go to actually try to set a boundary, it feels hard. It feels impossible. It brings up a lot of activation in your system and you feel like, why am I so bad at this? Why can I not set boundaries? Why can I not honor boundaries? And I want to talk a little bit about why that is today. And also, I really want to speak to people who are in the healing profession, who are interested in understanding the language of your nervous system and how to facilitate that work for other people. Because this was one of the largest turning points in my work as a practitioner. And I want to tell you a little bit about my story and the inability to set boundaries and why it was so hard for me and what changed, and not only changed my healing journey, but also changed the transformation that I was able to elicit for the clients that I served. And it all came down to my ability to set proper boundaries, to learn how to care for someone, how to hold space for someone, how to guide someone to safety, how to be with their activation, how to know what's happening inside of their nervous system without feeling like I had to merge and take it on as my own. And, just for time's sake, let me tell you a little personal story about how this showed up for me in my own life and how it also transformed the way that I now lead others and that I now teach other practitioners to lead others. So if you haven't heard my story at all, about 8.5 years ago, I started my coaching practice. And at that time, I was not immersed in the somatic world. I was just strictly a coach. I did my coach certification program through Coach Training Alliance. I was an ICF certified coach, which is what most coaches, when they decide to get into the coaching industry, they go into. They go into some generic coaching certification. They learn how to ask really powerful questions, but they're not really trained on anything to do with the body. It is all cognitive. Most mindset coaches are trained in this way. In fact, most therapists are also trained in cognitive modalities. They have not been introduced to anything in relationship to the nervous system. Not all of them, but most of them, right? Most traditional psychotherapy programs and psychology degrees teach cognitive behavioral therapy as their number one modality, and that is a cognitive modality. So I was just like the majority of the population out there. I was a really powerful question asker, and I could lead my clients to transformation. I could also lead myself to a certain space of transformation, but it wasn't long lasting. And I always seemed to step into the same feedback loops over and over again. Like I would heal something, I would go to talk therapy, I would work with my mindset coaches, I would take myself through all of the things that we're taught to do, right? The affirmations, the, reading personal development books, talking to yourself in a kind way, all of these cognitive modalities, really viewing a situation from a different lens. I was doing all these things, but in the long run, it didn't stick. And it also wasn't sticking for my clients. So about 8.5 years ago, started my coaching practice, was really heavy in the coaching world, in the mindset coaching world. At this time too, okay, if you saw my life on Instagram, it looked like I was living a pretty highlight reel-esque life. Okay, I was traveling the world with my friends. I was, dating a wonderful man who was traveling with me. My business was booming. I was being featured in the New York Times and NBC News. All of these things, right? I was sharing on social media. It looked like I was living this highlight reel life. And at this time, it's important to note that I was also doing all of the things that I just spoke about, right? I was reciting my morning affirmations. I was cold plunging before it was cool. I was exercising. I was eating well. I had a whole team of traditional mindset coaches and therapists. I was reading one personal development book every single month. Like I was doing all of it. Everything that we're all taught to do. Probably some of the very same things that many of you are taught to do too. And if you are a healer in the healing space, you're probably eliciting these very same exercises for your clients, right? Breath work, all the things. So I was doing all these things. And I was also teaching my clients to do these very same things. And again, on the outside, it looked like I was living a great life. And then one day, everything shifted for me. And it came down to 3 phone calls. Phone call number 1, and if you follow me for a while, you've heard this, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper into detail surrounding the boundary piece. Call number 1 that came through was from my boyfriend at the time, from his mother, who was calling to let me know that he had checked himself into rehab for the 6th time that year. And that was call number 1. Call number 2 was from my accountant, calling to let me know that the business was $30K in the red, and I was spending money quicker than I could make it. And call number 3 came from my doctor, calling to let me know that a biopsy I had taken earlier that week had come back as potential cancer. So here I was, a coach, doing all of the things that we're all taught to do, and my whole life came crumbling down right in front of me. And in that moment, I remember saying to myself, and I'm going to cuss here in my Instagram, but this personal development world is bullshit. It doesn't work. Like all I feel like I'm doing is spinning my wheels and doing everything perfectly the way that I need to do it. And it's not working. Now at that time, I was also seeing the same trend with my clients. Okay. I was seeing them have some sort of a breakthrough. They were able to find a relationship They were able to tap into abundance. They were able to feel better in their body, but then it would come crashing down. It wasn't sustainable. And these clients that I was having these huge transformations with kept coming back to me feeling like they were broken and fragile. At that time too, I felt really responsible for their healing. I felt like I could fix them. I felt like I could save them. So much so that many of them had my personal cell phone number. Many of them would text me on nights and weekends and I would answer. I had very poor boundaries because I felt like if I didn't, because I was a coach, I was different than a therapist at that time. I thought I was. And I felt like if I gave them all of me, then I could be the winner, right? So here I was living in these dynamics. I was doing all the things I thought I needed to be doing, and it all came crashing down anyways. And so it was at that moment that I had a friend who had been immersed in nervous system work for a while. She came to me and she said, look, I know that you are burned out. I can see it. I know that you are exhausted. I know you're tired. I know you're sad because all of this is happening, but I really think that there is a piece that you probably need to look at that you've never looked at before. And she led me into my very first somatic session, kicking and screaming. I really was pretty jaded at that point surrounding, is anything going to work, right? And all I'll say is that after that first session, I felt nothing radically changed in my life after one session, but I felt this deep sense of peace and safety inside of my body that I had never felt before. Now I can explain it. I had tapped into what's called ventral vagal connection. I, for the first time in a long time, was able to access that part of me. Now I know what it is. Then I didn't. And that was enough for me to continue to start to look at the nervous system. I was like, I think that there's something here. And even if there's not, I feel way better when I leave a session than I do when I come in. So there's something to this. So long story short, ended up staying with somatic work. 6 months later, found my first healthy relationship at 32. Turned my business around, went from 30K in debt to making 30K in 1 month. It was my first wild abundance month. And I was able to eradicate the cancer scare. And I knew in that moment that I had tapped into the missing piece. And at that point, I really knew the language of my nervous system. And I started to shift the way that I was showing up for my clients from that space. At that time, I didn't really know how to facilitate. I was just a student. I was just being taught for myself how to learn the language of my nervous system. But because I was being taught that and I was immersed in it and I was embodying it, I started to use some of those same practices that my somatic therapist was using with me and my practitioner was using with me with my clients, right? Not the really deep renegotiation work, but just the ability to come home to safety, just the ability to attune, just the ability to co-regulate and know what that meant. And I started to notice that my clients were having breakthroughs just like I was, but they weren't backsliding. It was sustainable. I also noticed that when I was leaving sessions, I didn't feel depleted. I didn't feel exhausted. I didn't feel like, oh my gosh, this person's trauma is so big. And because it's so big, I have to meet them there. And because I'm meeting them there, I would get out of sessions sometimes 8.5 years ago. So depleted. And I recognized in that moment that if something didn't change, if I didn't truly immerse myself as a healing practitioner in learning how to elicit someone into understanding the language of their nervous system, if I didn't truly learn how to facilitate nervous system work, I was not only going to do my client a disservice, I was not going to be able to maintain a sustainable practice for the rest of my life. And this is what I'm seeing is so prevalent inside of the healing space right now. There are a lot of coaches and breathwork facilitators and therapists and healing professionals who are burned out. They aren't making the money they really deserve to make, because I truly believe, I posted about this today, that the therapy world is broken. Most traditional therapists, if they do not have somatic training or nervous system training, are taught to elicit mindset work. They burn out. They only get paid $100 a session, and their practice isn't sustainable, right? So I'm starting to see some of these trends. So long story short, after I decided to go through my own somatic work and understanding the nervous system and really being able to learn somatic renegotiation and understand how it related to attachment patterns, my practice shifted drastically. And I started to see a massive gap in the healing space, primarily with coaches, primarily with healing professionals. I do believe that the therapy world is starting to come around to nervous system work. But unfortunately, the coaching space and the healing space, mediums, body workers, massage therapists, coaches, mindset coaches, spirituality coaches, they don't have access to true trauma renegotiation work from the lens of the nervous system. And that is when a year ago, I decided that I was going to launch a certification program for coaches and healers and anyone who wants to learn how to learn the language of their nervous system and teach their clients the language of their nervous system so that they can renegotiate relational trauma on a deeper level and start addressing what I like to call the other 80% of the healing puzzle, which is the body, right? How do we elicit safe trauma renegotiation work from the lens of the nervous system versus just cognitive awareness? How do we do that? And how do we do it in relationship to relational patterns? Because most of us understand attachment patterns. We get it, but we haven't really looked at how does it show up in the body, and is it actually possible to lead someone to a deeper space of safety? Is it actually possible to learn attunement? To understand that if you don't have strong boundaries and you haven't done the work to understand your own nervous system, that your client could potentially trigger your own sympathetic dominance, your own parasympathetic dominance. And if you don't know how to get yourself to safety, if you don't know how to regulate yourself, you run the risk of not only re-traumatizing your client, but also re-traumatizing yourself. So yesterday in my Rooted Masterclass, we dove really deep into a lot of these principles. I talk about how to lead someone to safety, how to lead yourself to safety, what is attunement, and how can you attune to your clients? What does that mean? How do you properly administer it? Also, what is co-regulation? We also talked about the ripple effect of not having strong boundaries, of not knowing the language of your own system, not knowing how to lead your client to understanding the language of their nervous system. We talked about all of this in Rooted. So if you're interested, go watch that masterclass. It's free. It's a 90-minute masterclass. I'm not going to go into it here, but I'm giving you kind of a gist of what we talk about. However, in that masterclass, I launched something very exciting, which I wasn't going to do. I have a year-long certification program for healing professionals. It's called the Trauma-Informed Relational Somatics Facilitator Program. And it is a year-long with me. You do have to be accepted. So you will need to speak to me just to make sure that you are a healing professional and you do have some sort of background in healing work. Okay. But it's a year-long with me. And you will learn how to lead your clients through trauma renegotiation work through the lens of the nervous system in relationship to attachment patterns. So we are going to go really deep into what does it look like to identify dysregulation in the system? How do you enter in what's called a counter vortex to renegotiate trauma in real time? There's a reason that it's a year long, because it's deep work. What it looks like is that you are with me for a full day of training every month for a year. For an entire year. You get access to a manual. You will have to do case consults. You will have to do mentor check-in sessions. Right now we have a full program, and I've decided, because I offer it only to the people who have done somatic work inside of my inner circle containers, But I decided that I know there are some coaches and therapists and healers that follow me here. I'm opening 4 spots for the public for you to apply to come into the program. I only run this program once a year. So we start the 3rd week in January. Again, we're full and I'm opening 4 additional spots. If you are interested in coming in, I want you to send me a direct message and I will respond back to you and I'll talk to you a little bit more about the program. I do want you to let me know, A, what is sparking your interest about this program, and B, what you do as a healing professional, because that is important. It is a very curated group of people that are inside of this year-long container. So it is open to the public. Again, we have 4 spots that are available left to claim, and it is a deeply transformational program. Very, very deep. You're going to learn how to administer somatic renegotiation work inside of the year long together. Okay. There's a private Telegram channel. You get hands-on support with me. You're learning my methodology. I'm teaching you how to do it all in real time. Our manual is like really thick. I poured my whole heart and soul into it. It is a year long of information and there is a lot to absorb, but it will change the way that you lead your clients to transformation. Also, I'll just say this, it is a business write-off. So if you are a coach, a therapist, a healer, if you work with humans in any capacity, know that you can write this off as education, right? We are working right now too in having it become an ICF credentialed course. So we should have that in the next 3 to 6 months. So if you want to also get your ICF credentialing, you'll be able to do this. You'll be able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. When you graduate, you will, if you complete all your requirements, right? Because there are requirements in order to graduate. Not everybody that goes through will be a trauma-informed relational somatics practitioner, okay? Not everybody that goes through gets it. You do have to complete a pretty robust list of things in order to be certified. So when you do that, you will be able to become a TIRS practitioner. You get an emblem for your website. You can start to do trauma renegotiation work. A lot of the women that have gone through the program, they get to increase their prices because they become well-versed in the nervous system. So they're doing trauma renegotiation work in addition to the mindset work, in addition to the therapy that they've done in the past. So it really, truly is a robust program that will change the way that you lead and change the way that you elicit transformation with your clients. So if you are interested, I want you to send me a direct message. We'll have a little chit chat about it. We'll see if you're a good fit and I'll tell you more about the program. But I wanted to hop on here and just talk a little bit about it because I've been receiving some questions. And also we just decided on a whim to open 4 spots to the public because everything has been filled internally. So that was a lot. I know there's probably some questions that you all have. So if you have them, drop them below this video and I will do my best to answer them. And if you have any questions about the certification program, yeah, Emma, I see you're here. Emma's joining me next year. If you have any questions about the certification program, I'm scrolling through to see if there were any other questions. Just send me a DM. You all know that it is me, right? So just know that I will be answering all of the messages and the DMs. And know that I love you. So someone asked, is it Reiki or is it different from somatic healing? So Reiki is energy work, somatic renegotiation work. They're 2 totally different. This is not a Reiki program. Okay. It is not a Reiki program. It is my own methodology that is combined with somatic experiencing and somatic renegotiation work. So it's relational trauma work in combination with some mindset work, some deep belief work. It's my methodology and how I work with clients. So it is not Reiki and it's not somatic experiencing. It's a combo of how I work with clients in my past with all of the mindset work I've done, with all of the deep belief work that I've done and all the somatic experiencing history that I have as a somatic experiencing practitioner. So it's a really cool program. You're going to be learning a lot, but it's not Reiki. Let's see. Any other questions? We do have extended payment plans available. So just know that if you are interested, that we can talk about that too. We do have payment plans available for you. And I believe that's all. Okay. I love you all so much. I have a pot roast in the oven which I think I talked about. I'm going to go get it out because I haven't had pot roast all season. So excited. It's been in there for a couple hours. And hopefully I will see some of you in the certification program next year. Love you all. Talk to you soon.